One of the secrets of writing that you're probably not going to hear from very many people is that good writers don't have to know everything about something. They don't have to be encyclopedic. They have to know enough to understand the very basics. Because if you think about it, if I'm describing to you something that you know nothing about, you're probably not looking for the most elaborate answers. So for instance, if I'm trying to describe to you how to do a video right now, like I am with my iPhone and a tripod, you're probably not asking for the nuances of lighting and the key elements of sound and how you can make sound bounce off the walls of the room. Now that's all possible, correct? Yes. But why would you care? You want very basic stuff to start out. And most of the things that we write about, people aren't looking for encyclopedic information because they're gathering information about it for what they need to do. So when I help people write business books, or when I write business books for them, we're not writing at a deep, deep level. We're writing at the level of the person who's trying to understand the issue, trying to understand what something is. And I learned this as a journalist. Years ago, I was a journalist. I worked for a group of weekly newspapers, and I would write 15 or 20 articles a week. That's 15 or 20 times that I was out and about, going into a situation and having to write about it. Might be a fire, might be a tornado that touched down, had that happen a couple times, might be a car crash, it might be a school board meeting, it might be a planning and zoning meeting, it might be kids winning an award at school. In every situation, I would go in and I'd try to understand the key elements. I didn't have to understand, for instance, the kids in the school. I didn't have to understand everything about the classroom dynamics and how they got put in the classroom and how they chose the award winners over the last 10 years. I just needed to know they chose the award winners, here's the criteria, here's who won, and there's the story. In the case of the tornado, I didn't have to know everything about EF and E2 and E3 tornadoes. I just needed to know which one it was and then describe what that was. And I think that's one of the things that we often struggle with as writers when we're writing business books, when we're writing anything, is how deep do we have to go into it? And what I would tell you is most people that I talk to about writing books think they have to know everything. It's just not true. And let me give you another example from my career. Back in, I want to say 1997, 98, I think I'm right, I was doing freelance writing, and someone out in Oregon got connected with me. Somehow we connected, and he had a group of magazines that were focused on concrete decor. Okay, this is the concrete stamping, and then they paint it and they do other things to it so that it looks really decorative on your walk into your nice house or going into your gazebo or something like that. Now, you can hear as I'm talking about it right now, I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm not deeply knowledgeable about it. But guess what? I wrote about 6 articles for that person back then, and he loved what I wrote. Want to know how I did it? I'll tell you. 1, I thought about what are the simple things that someone would want and need to know about the situation they asked me to write about. So he'd typically give me a topic, talk to this guy about some new thing he's doing with concrete, or talk about this person who just won an award. And I'd just call him up. This was back in the days of like rotary phones. We're talking old school, and be like, hey, Bob Graham, I'm writing a piece for Concrete Decor. Can you tell me about this thing? And they'd go, oh yeah, sure, let me explain it to you. And they'd start to explain it. And they get very technical. And I'd say, hey, I'm really sorry. Can you simplify this for me? Because I really don't need to get into it that deep, and I really don't need to know all the detail. What I'm looking for is, can you answer these couple of questions? And the couple of questions are, why should someone care? What's different about what you're doing? And how can it benefit people going forward? And those are really the 3 questions, as I think about it, that probably inform about 99% of what we write, especially if you're writing a book that's going to generate leads and referrals and help you get into a place where you're a thought leader. And you may say, oh, if I'm going to be a thought leader, if I'm going to write about this stuff, if I'm going to speak on stages about it, I need to know everything. I'm going to tell you right now, I've spoken on stages about soft skills. I've done research on soft skills. I'm not an expert on soft skills. There are people that are far more knowledgeable at soft skills than me. Yet I'm the co-author of a book about it. I've written another book about it. I've spoken on stages. I've taught it in college courses, but I'm not an expert. And this is so important to understand as a writer. The goal is not to be an expert and know everything about anything, because first of all, that's a foolish thing. You can't know everything about anything. Second of all, most people are not going to dig real deep into how much you know. They're not going to fact check it unless it really doesn't make sense. Now, I'm not saying to be inaccurate. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying the level of depth of what you need to cover is not nearly as deep as you think. And I hear all the time from people, I'm not ready to write about that yet. I'm not ready to speak on that topic yet because I'm not an expert. People know so much more than me. Here's the difference. There are lots of people that know your topic better than you do, but can they write about it in a way that gets the reader to care? Because that's ultimately the name of the game. If I can help the reader understand the information, I'm more valuable than an expert, because I'm actually the person that helps them understand something they're trying to figure out. And so if you think about it, when I go to the hardware store, I ask them, hey, I just went in, I need to find a certain bolt. And I went into my local hardware store and I said, hey, I'm looking to solve this problem. I have this headboard, it's not working the way I thought it would. It's a little this, a little that. They failed to include a couple pieces. Can you help me? Guy said, yeah, sure, let's go back here. We went back to where they have all the screws, looked in, found the right screw for me. It took him about 3 minutes. And he said, here, this is what you need. Just go and put it in place of what you think you're missing. Okay, great. Now, we didn't go into the technology of screws. We didn't talk about whether it was, nickel, aluminum, platinum, whatever metal. We didn't. We didn't talk about whether it was flathead or Phillips. We didn't talk about the history of screws. Nor did we look into it beyond the fact of the use of what I was doing. You didn't say, hey, by the way, if you ever want to, you could use a screw to do this and this and this and this. And thank goodness he didn't go through that with me, because I didn't want to know that. I had a simple problem. How do I get my headboard bolted to my bed with the pieces that are apparently missing? That's all I wanted to solve. I didn't want to know, my headboard's going to do this and headboard's going to do that and the bed should do this, which it should be turned this way and that way. That doesn't matter. I have a very simple problem. And I go in and this person solves the problem. So I leave and I say to someone else, who's like, yeah, I need a piece of hardware. I'm like, you got to go in and talk to this guy here. He's like, really? Is it good? Does he know what he's doing? I'm like, he absolutely does. Now think about it. Think about the mere fact of, does he know what he's doing? He absolutely does. All he was able to do was find me a screw. It was like an M4 45 screw, 2 inches long. That's not really enough to determine whether a hardware store employee is the most talented person in his field, if you think about it. However, he solved my problem. My friend had a problem. And so because he was able to solve my problem, I thought he would be able to solve my friend's problem. And because my friend heard me say this guy solved my problem, he thought this guy would solve his problem. And notice, we did not check into how long he had been in the hardware business. We didn't ask where he went to college, if he went to college. I knew his name, I knew where he worked, and that was about it. So think about that. When someone's looking for expertise, and you have those expertise, you are the expert to them. Think about that. You are their expert. Why? Because you're the person who helped them solve their problem. You're the person who helped them understand the situation. No one else did. Are there more people out there that could do it? Absolutely. Was he the only hardware store employee that could help me? Absolutely not. There are probably thousands of them. At Lowe's, at Home Depot, at True Value, at Ace Hardware, you name it, and all the other independent stores. But I went into this one near me. The guy was able to solve my problem, and this is it. So what will happen? I'll go back to that hardware store. I've already recommended the guy once. So think about that with what you're trying to do when you're writing a book or writing anything for your audience. What do they need to know? How can you help them better understand their situation? And how can you start to solve their problem? Because that's what's going to make them want to work with you. That's what's going to make them want to recommend you to other people. It's not full expertise. When I go, it's just over and over. Think about it. I go to my cardiologist. Here's my problem, doctor. Help me solve the problem. My heart's racing. These times, what do I need? Gives me a pill, fixes it. Run tests, fixes it. We don't go into the whole history of heart surgery and hearts and all this stuff. I don't care. So when you're writing, focus on the problems that most of the people you're trying to serve need to better understand and deliver that to them. It's going to make writing so much easier, so much faster, and frankly, more valuable to a lot more people. And at the end of the day, isn't that the goal? To make what you write more valuable to the people you're trying to serve? Let me know in the comments what this means for you. And if you're struggling with that, let's talk. Let's figure out ways to work together to see if we can solve this problem for you.